A major hub today on our discussion segment is to look at the International Human Rights Day that was actually yesterday. And of course, you know that the issue of human rights has since begun for quite some time now. It's almost a kind of an issue talking about centuries, decades, and all that. And you hear people often ask the question, do you really know your rights? Big question that people will ask. And here in Nigeria, we celebrated, we observed it yesterday, the Human Rights Day, and Edo State too will also observe it yesterday. And the theme of this year's celebration is Youth Standing Up for Human Rights. And just yesterday, I was watching some of reports on the day, and we saw where the Secretary of the National Human Rights Commission in Nigeria, actually said that human rights situations in Nigeria are good. Well, this has elicited reactions and counter reactions from people around. Well, to look at all this morning, we are so privileged to have leftist Omobude Ago, who is the Coordinator General of Edo Civil Society organization. You're welcome to this program this morning on ITV. Now, leftist, let's start from the Secretary General of the National Human Rights Commission, who said that human rights situations in Nigeria are good.
It depends on where he's looking at, his point of view, and where he's looking at it from. We, at our own commemoration yesterday, we faulted some of those statements openly, because I think that he shouldn't have said that at this time, because there's no worst time ever than now that the human rights issues is being under serious threat. Considering things that just happened just yesterday with the Sowore's issue, the Abba Jalingo issue, there a lot of journalists are suffering a whole lot of oppressive attacks. The National Assembly trying to come up with the hate speech bill, and you say human rights, and the Secretary of the National Human Rights Commission comes up to say that it is improving. Then I think that he must be talking from another angle, not from the angle that we are all seeing it from. Because this, we would have expected to say that human rights is in its worst time in our democracy right now, not the other way around. But again, we can understand that he's also, the National Human Rights Commission is a creation of the states, and its staff and members are on the pay of the states. They couldn't have spoken contrary, otherwise somebody would have been prepared to lose a salary or lose a job.
Yeah, but what seems to be the issue is because the secretary is a human rights activist the way you are, and for me personally, it seems that you have people say that the situations are good. Some activists in Nigeria say that are good. Some say that human rights situations are not good. Now, it seems that human rights activism is even not going on the same direction.
Let me quickly respond to the first part of your question, to say that some activists are saying human rights situation is good, some saying it's not good. I cannot say I've heard any activists, real activists in this country that say respect for human rights is good or improving. No, as it were, no, not at all. We are in the worst time of it right now. You are a media practitioner. We see how many journalists have been incarcerated recently because they try to air their view. The journalists that expose the collection of dollars kickback from the Kano State governor, we know what he went through. The Abba Jalingo, we know what he's going through. We know a whole lot of it around town that the show owned just yesterday that DSS will refuse to release on bail, and when they eventually do, after a court of competent jurisdiction have placed a fine of 100 million naira, they released him 24 hours after and rearrested him in corporate premises.
It said that Showore breached the bail conditions that were given to him.
How could Showore breach bail condition? A man that's in detention, how could he breach bail condition while he's still in the court premises? How? Oh, that's why I said the human rights, respect for human rights is at its worst in these times. It could get better, then we'll change our language. But for now, nobody can tell me that it is better and improving. No, it is not.
Okay.
We are getting to the worst time of it.
All right. Now let's look at those schools. For I think for like 5 days now, you've had activities and all that. So can you tell us how the issues were, the events were?
Yes. The World Human Rights Week is always celebrated from the 5th to on the 10th.
Okay.
And we brought in all kind of activities so that we can reach out to people, who can draw them closer and make them see that we are human rights activists, and it's not a closed opportunity. It's for everybody to participate. So the first day we had a football novelty match with the NBA. These are our closest partners, because we are not lawyers. They are the lawyers, the one that go to court on our behalf, doing a lot of pro bonos. We had a novelty match. The following day we had Dr. Obayona, the former Attorney General of Commissioner for Justice and Attorney General of Edo State. Yes, who came to talk about some issues, very salient issues, and made some pronouncement on that day. The day after, we had Barrister Dele Igbinedion, the very renowned Barrister Dele Igbinedion, who is our very close, one of our close lawyers was there. So we had Barrister Prince Agboka was also there to talk about corruption. Okay. After, we had a rally with EFCC on the 9th, which was the anti-corruption day. We also organized a free health check, free eye check, and blood donation. We also made people to voluntarily donate blood through the National Blood Donation Transfusion Agency, so that we could also contribute to society. And many of our comrades donated blood. Those are all part of it. Then yesterday was the Grand Hall with a summit where we have our big man, Comrade Reverend Oluwadele Gbigbe, yes, the former NSC, the one I almost said, the last NSC chairman we have, the former NSC chairman, who spoke very, very, very eruditely and very encouraging, and boosted the morals of many other comrades, young comrades, who had interest to practice activism. So it was great.
All right.
Now, basically, on the background that we just came out from an attack by sponsored by the Edo State government on the specialist hospital.
Let us not digress on that.
No, I'm not. I just say I'm adding to this Human Rights Week.
Let's stay focused on the issue now. What is really the situation with human rights? Let's take Nigeria as a case study. Now, you hear some people will say that a lot of people are not even educated enough to know their rights. Why some will say that, no, it is not because they are not educated enough. It is because over time, oftentimes, you have governments, agencies, policies, programs, deliberately to kind of bottle up the rights of the average citizen. Yeah. So what do you think is really the issue? Is it that people are not educated enough to know their rights, or that government, as is being alleged, that government bottle up the rights of citizens?
I think the best response would have been that it's both. Governments have bottled up the mental, according to my friend, the mental hobble. I wonder if that English is very correct. The mental hobble of the ordinary man. They created a situation where the people are so poor that the only thing they think of on a daily basis is how to survive for that day, to the extent that they don't even know how to stand and defend their rights. So for them, every opportunity is to find a breathing space, not knowing that even their right is the fundamental of the breathing space. So for us in Edo Civil Society Organization, we try to create connections with people. We have reduced it. We try to avoid this grammar. The grammar I'm speaking now, you notice that I'm struggling to speak it, because we've trained our minds to be able to speak pidgin. The one that everybody can understand, so that we can carry everybody along. Yes. So by that, we also are creating study centers everywhere. In the 18 local government of Edo State, we have study center points there where everybody, whether you went to school, whether you've never been to school, so far you can communicate. You should first know that there is a law. But again, when we say government have bottled up, the idea is philosophical. It's a methodology they use by removing history from our schools, removing civic education from our school. Don't say we have civic education. The kind of civic education we have in our schools, it's not the kind of civic education that should be in our schools. Many of our students that are in SS 1, 2, 3 have never seen the Nigerian Constitution before, so they don't even know what's in it. And we think that this civic education must begin from at least primary 3, when children can read and they can comprehend. They should start knowing what they are right about this and what they are right about that. Children should start talking about my right, my right, my right. But now they don't know. That is why we're seeing on television, you see a representative who organize a one-day training on generator repair, and it costs plenty of millions of naira, and he put on television to say we organize a one-day training on generator. That is a profession that takes another person 1 year to learn, and he will not still be an expert. So it's all a process to siphon funds, but they do it in a way to seem as if they are helping you, whereas they are not. It's their pocket they are helping, but citizens don't also know that that thing is wrong. If you try to tell them, for them to say, at least they can't give us 2,000 naira for transport, they give us 1 pack of rice and one bottle of mineral. So for them, it is survival for that day. That is the state that the politicians and our political leaders have placed the people. So in all, it is, yes, government came up with a deliberate policy or a methodology to bottle the people, to keep them ignorant so that they can keep milking them.
I'll take that as an allegation.
No, it's a fact. It's a fact everywhere.
Yeah, but some people don't have the same belief.
We are saying the same thing because of the mentality. It is deliberately put there. It is deliberately put there so that the people will remain in that cycle. They must keep jumping them like monkeys. So they keep throwing peanuts at them. So we, for us, our responsibility as society, every day we say it. We say we will not stop until the last man is liberated. So the more people we try to reach out, the more we try to share with. And you notice, as many of our commissioners we are coming in contact with, that you used to know some time ago we are not that smart, you realize that they have become different people, and they are more illuminated, they are more brightened, and they begin to react differently. Why? Because they just only they just only realize that they've been in the dark for a very long time. Now they see the light, and they begin to react differently. For example, when you tell some Nigerians that bail is free, you don't pay for your freedom. Your freedom is given to you by the Constitution. So say, it cannot be true now. I want to go station when I not go pay money. Even though you go there and practice it in their presence and get them out free, the next time if they are held, they still think that it is an exclusive duty for you to know and to do, not for them. It is deliberate by the system to position them like that.
Okay, what's your assessment on human rights situations in Nigeria?
We are still at the developing stage, because I could say in Edo State we have done bits quite better than many other states in the country, and we have 36 states, including the Federal Capital Territory. So we can manageably say 37 states, because the Federal Capital Territory has local government itself. Yeah. So let's say 37 states. So if only one state is thriving, that means we have not done much. So we think that we will not stop. We'll just keep pushing. We'll keep doing our best. There were people before us. Felani Kolakpokoti was there, Beko Koti, Gani, Faoemi, and a whole lot of them did all they did. And that's why we are who we are now. So we just need to keep doing our own. It's still very at the weak side. And the politicians rejoice over that, but we'll keep doing as much as we can do.
Now, yeah, you discover that oftentimes we have issues with civility. Yes. I mean, the way people should go about normal civil issues in town, normal decorum issues in town and all that, at the expense of, human rights. You hear people tell you that, look, it is my right, at the expense of civil civility. Now, how do you go about this issue? Letting people know that, okay, this is your right, but your right stops there, so that you don't breach civil civility and all that.
It is true that where one man's right ends, that's where another man begins.
Yeah.
But again, we have a society where the mass majority of people are apprehensive. You just need to understand this first. People don't even know when they are right and when they are wrong. People don't even know where their right began and where their right ends. People are just living, just moving like a zombie, just going by the wind of the societal dictates. You understand? Yeah. So at such a situation, it becomes difficult for you to explain this you have explained until we just sustain what we are doing now. Telling them, no, you can't do this, you can do that. Because even the authorities themselves don't want you to know that you have a right. We hear authorities telling people you don't have a right, particularly the military. When you say I have a right, they say, shut up, you don't have a right. So if the military man who should teach citizens about their right and remind them according to the Constitution, tell you don't have a right. If a policeman, when you say, oh, sir, I have a right to this, and say, shut up, you don't have a right. If he tells you by knocking down your morals in those statements, what do you expect that man, if he lives there, to do? He also thinks he doesn't have a right. and he becomes low in his morale, and he's not able to function well. So the system is still what we need to deal with. So for us, like I said, Edo Civil Society Organization, we are doing all our best. We've been able to replicate ourselves in 13 states right now, but those it's not. It won't, of course, not as vibrant as we have here. But if we are trusting God that those states could also pick up, and if they become as vibrant as we are now, then of course we can say we've done well in the country. And what the question you have asked now will be differently. You will say, oh, you can appreciate that people are now respecting civility in society. Of course, we'll get there.
Now, perhaps I may want to ask the question over again. Now, what role do you play for people to know their civil obligations, civil responsibilities, and for them to also know that, look, it is, because some people will say that civil obligations are almost the same thing as your rights. I mean, for example, it is my right to own a voter's card. Yes. It is my right to vote. And as soon as I vote, I perform my civil obligation. So do you do anything to...
I'm sure, even if I don't remember, you can remember that we were on this set before the last elections, where we had the campaign of Let's Cook campaign. You say, let's cook our votes. It's not for sale. And we've done all of that. Like I said, we do a whole lot. We go around using our resources, our time, our energy to educate people. But you will still see that the people will still act otherwise.
Yeah, perhaps, don't you think if you let people know that, look, these civic responsibilities are actually your rights, they may want to embrace them more? Because for some people, civic responsibilities, I beg, it's not my business. It's you know, for some other people that even are more educated more than them. But when you let them know that, look, these obligations, these responsibilities are actually your right, don't you think they will embrace them more?
As much as we teach them, without giving them anything. That is how the political class teach them the contrary of what we are teaching them, putting some change in their hand, because the political class need their civic power to attain their own positions. You understand? That's why I said earlier, I said they like to gather them as monkeys and kept throwing peanuts at them. That was the expression I was trying to give. We do as much. But again, a man that does not have food in his house and he doesn't know the next opportunity to have food, and one politician comes to him and says, sell your vote and I'll give you 2K. You think it will not take special grace for that man to reject all of that?
So what you're saying is that poverty is perhaps one issue with human rights.
Yes, deliberate. The politicians have deliberately put the people down mentally, psychologically, morally. They deliberately don't want to create jobs. They deliberately don't want to create opportunities. They deliberately don't want the pastor to work. They deliberately don't want many of those things to work. They deliberately keep increasing taxes and making life more difficult for the people. They deliberately make rice hard to buy. It is a deliberate policy. We know one big politician those days that insisted that one local government chairman must be dropped at that time because he was making the people of his local government comfortable by providing a lot of the amenities. And he said, if you make them comfortable, they'll become so strong and they become wise, and the next time they'll start challenging you. He said, make them poor, so that, he said, don't ever give them all. Give them small. That will not be enough, so that they'll keep coming back to ask for. So you realize that it's a deliberate policy. So all of that, I say, we are talking, but we are trusting God that we can be able to galvanize the people to understand that we can pull resources together and start creating the difference. And Edo State is already doing that. That's why we already have our transport scheme. We have created 20 jobs, directly and indirectly more jobs. We have made proving that the transportation can be cheaper than even what the government is providing. We have a target to have a hospital so that we can show people that healthcare can be as cheap as it should be. It's not as expensive as they claim. We just started.
Anyway, I don't want to do all that.
We started a football club. The one that played.
Yeah, but I don't want to do all that commercials.
No, it's not commercial. I'm trying to say. I'm talking about what we intend to do to reach out to the people's mind. What we do is public. It's
all right. Now, I really want you to look at something that people have also expressed worry over. That it appears that as much as African societies are embracing democracy, that is the way they are also having issues with human rights. One would have expected that it ought to be the other way around. I mean, those days when we had some societies in Africa, some have military rule and all that, we didn't have the kind of problems that we have with human rights the way it is now. What do you think are the issues?
It's because, I'll tell you, those that were on this side.
Is it that democracy gives problems to human rights?
Democracy is not the problem. It's the practitioners, our kind of practitioners of democracy that are doing all of this. You could say we are in democracy, but most of those people running our democratic system are also the military people, either directly we're in the military or indirectly in the military. So their mentality hasn't changed. That is one. Two, we also have those that were not part of the fight for democracy, occupying the democratic offices. So they don't have value for what they have.
Yeah.
That is also part of it. Three, it was that the era of the pro-democracy activists at that time that did not take it over but allowed some persons who didn't have business in it taking it over is also
an issue.
Yes, it's also part of why we are here. Then our foundation is also a big reason why our democracy is problematic. Because democracy in other climes makes society better, easier, and more accommodative. But our own makes it more tyrannic. Why? Because tyrants were the ones that took over, not the pro-democracy activists.
Well, you cannot say so. You cannot say so. All right, we also have that the program is still this morning on ITV, and we're looking at the International Human Rights Day retrospect. That was actually yesterday. And we have leftist Omobude here doing some great talks on human rights situations in Nigeria. Now, the theme of this year's celebration is youth standing up for human rights.
Stand up for human rights.
That seems to be a big problem.
Yes.
Now, when we talk about human rights, the youths at times are being reported not to even know their rights. What are the issues?
Now, all that will take us back to where we started the discussion from. It's a deliberate policy by government.
Deliberate policy for a youth?
It's deliberate policy by government to get the youth not to be involved.
As I'm a youth, you mean if I don't know my rights, it is the problem of the government? I mean, that ought to be my own problem.
You are speaking the way you are speaking now because of the foundation you are built on.
And of course, I expect other youths out there to also aspire to know their rights.
How many youths?
I aspire to know my rights.
No, you didn't aspire.
No, I aspired. I mean, I had to read to know my rights.
Because
first and foremost, I know that my first right as an individual is right to life. I mean, I don't need government to tell me that because I do know that is a shrine in my constitution.
Evans,
so I don't need the government to tell me to read up.
No, give God thanks that you had opportunity to go to school where you could read A, B, C, D at all. Our schools, that should be a foundation for the future leaders. What are their states? What are the states of the secondary schools? What are the states of our tertiary institutions?
But the question is, the youth, do they aspire?
How can they aspire when they don't have a foundation? How can you roof a house that you didn't set its foundation? How do you build it to that extent? If the bedrock of every developed society is education.
Yeah, but are you telling me that in your own time, be sincere, did you go through the education that you expected to go through? I mean, those days when we were growing up.
As I was growing up, I didn't have expectations, but my parents had expectations.
But of course, you didn't get the expectation, and of course, you aspired. You struggled through.
It's because we are here. The day you travel to America and you meet your mates, you will start hating your government. You will realize that they have wasted the best part of your life. Sincerely speaking, at this age, Barack Obama was already president of America. So, the day you live here now and say you want to become chancellor of your work because you want to make input, that day you will realize that something is wrong. The point I'm trying to say is, it's a deliberate policy by those elites to make sure that our youths don't get educated. They just create a building without creating a school. Even if they create a school, it's a school without education. Because they don't ever want you to get liberated. Because if you get liberated, you will come and struggle power with them. They don't
and perhaps you may also want to say that the youths are even not liberating themselves. I mean, take, for example, the recent court killings in Benin.
Because they don't know how to.
No, Amobode. Now, what we're saying is that for a youth that knows that his primary right as an individual is right to life. I mean, I expect him also to know that another youth also has that right too. Everybody has right to his or her life. Why will a youth take up a gun, take up an axe and kill another youth? You want to blame the government for that too?
Yes, because that is the direction that they have been educated on. If the government has set up institutions to direct them the positive way, it will be difficult for them to go the negative way. Train up a child the way a child should grow, so that when he's old, he will not depart from it. Now, what is the training that they are stuck to the guns? Somebody taught them that. We, yes, in our World Human Rights Summit yesterday, we raised this as part of our discussions to appeal to parents to have time for their children. Some parents wake up in the morning, they leave the house as early as 6 a.m. and they don't get back until 8 p.m. So the children don't see their parents going out, and they are going to bed before when their parents get back. So who teaches these children? The streets and society. What will society teach them? What to see now? I think cultism is condemnable, highly condemnable. But they that are to correct these activities themselves are the leaders of the court. They are the ones sponsoring it. They are the ones developing ideas around it.
But you don't have proof to that.
We have.
You have proof to that?
Yes, sir. It's in the news. ITV have proof. In the House of Assembly, we saw some time when they had crisis in the House of Assembly.
Yeah. I was also the same House of Assembly raising up a bill.
Yes, because they deceive themselves.
No, you cannot
but they
say
don't
so.
deceive us.
You cannot say so.
Listen,
I mean, for a house to have raised up, to have sponsored a bill.
Those that were sponsoring that bill, we spoke about it that time, and said they should first clean themselves. When they had crisis in the House of Assembly, what class and category of people did we see? What were the things they exhibited? What kind of backup or supporters did they bring? Were they not the same court people? Were we not in this state where we had a governor who was paying the several court groups monthly?
No, but you cannot say so. You don't have proof to that.
We came to this same studio. We came to this same studio and raised that same alarm.
Yeah, but
and said that is the sponsorship.
That we once had a governor in this state that was paying courts. Is that
yes, it was a secret.
Do you have proof to that?
I think you have proof. Go back to this.
I'm not sure. That's not true.
They were paying them, and we came on this station.
No, that's not
and
true.
said we came on this station.
We may hear of rumor. We may hear of allegation. It doesn't mean that we have proof. Because when you say proof, it means that it's factual. Okay, it's tangible.
Can I help you remember now? One time, the governor called the Inspector General of Police, who was Solomon at that time, and said, get hold of all these boys because of the activities they're getting too much. And they had all their leaders. All these leaders they had were all SAs, executive directors in that government. They all had executive positions in that government. And they were the ones that were harassing every other person that wasn't supporting that government.
Well, we understand that some of these organizations are registered organizations, and at times some people say that they are court organizations and all that. I think we should be able to differentiate between this.
When they become, if the Edo Civil Society organization is a registered organization, and tomorrow we start placarding guns, and you start hearing that we are not doing killings and all of that, will our registration still matter, or our activities?
But instead of blaming such organizations, why don't you try to blame some individuals who do the very unneedful?
If a member of Edo Civil Society is caught in armed robbery, I'm sure nobody will remember his name. As soon as they say Edo Civil Society, they start talking about Edo Civil Society. If a staff of ITV is found wanting in one activity that shouldn't be, the name of that staff will not be remembered, but the people who put to say he's a staff of ITV. So I think that the organization have its own hierarchy and its own structures. Hence, they should be able to redefine and redirect the organization properly. Otherwise, when its members begin to perpetrate such evil that society detests, they should call themselves and say that is not the direction. Otherwise, the organization loses its value and begin to get all of this bashing. We saw one video deep yesterday. One of those boys killed another boy and brought out his heart and started drinking his blood. And that organization has a name. It's in the public domain. What I expect that organization, whether we call it a cult or not, will come out and make a public pronouncement, apprehend those their members, and hand them over to police and say that is not what we represent. But hence they don't do that. It shows that it not represent that they are in agreement with it. Just like we will say, DSS are embarrassing Sowore and embarrassing the nation in that activities. People are not pointing finger at the presidency I say, if the presidency is not involved, the president would have since called the DSS to order.
Yeah, but
do.
statutory, the DSS has its roles and responsibilities and all that. You mean you need the president to tell the DSS what to do?
The DSS, it reports directly to the presidency. It's under the office of the presidency.
Certainly, and the DSS has the responsibility to clamp down on anyone or any group that does anything, ultra vires the government.
The DSS is a creation of the law. It is not a law unto itself, whatever.
And the DSS has a responsibility to the government of the day.
That responsibility.
Yeah.
What we saw them doing is no longer their responsibility, but an embarrassment to human rights and to the nation.
But that's what you say.
So we expect that the presidency would have called them to order and say, yes, we know you are trying to protect the sanctity of Nigeria, but the way you are going about it is embarrassing us. Do you understand? And come out to apologize to Nigerians. And Nigerians will feel respected. And the international community will see us in that same direction.
Anyway, we really don't have time. Now, just one last question before I let you go. How do you see human rights situations between now and, because the goal is Vision 2030. That's about some 11 years from now.
Yes.
So how do you see human rights situations in Nigeria?
It all depends on how much contributions the people make at it. But I think that the Human Rights Society is growing, is developing, and to get even better the way we are going, yes. And I think that we have more of the listening government and many other people who are not getting interested in holding political offices, and they seem to be the ones that will respect the human rights vision until 2020. So I can't say we will retrogress. I will say we will progress.
All right, thank you so much. I'm so proud of you, Omobode. Anytime I have you on set, I'm one of those that follow you secretly, particularly at the Edo Civil Society Organization.
Thank you.
And that's been Comrade Omobode, leftist comrade. Can I say comrade now?
No, leftist Omobode.
All right, leftist Omobode, the Coordinator General of Edo Civil Society Organizations, talking about the Human Rights International Day. That was yesterday. Well, we'll take a short pause now. Let's look at the political situation one more time in Edo State. Please stay tuned.